Right. Good morning, everyone. So this is the first meeting of the Harbour Management Advisory Committee. Now we've got everybody here in the room. So let me just go through the introduction. So my name's Josh. I'm the Democratic Services Clerk for the meeting. I don't know if you want to go through and just introduce, but I'll say everyone's names and then we can go from there. So I've got Jessica Tyson next to me. She's trying to scribble out her name badge next to me.
Good morning. My name's Jessica Tyson. I'm the Acting Harbour Master for Bridgewater, Minehead and Watchet.
And I've got Councillor Marcus Kravis next to me on the left.
Hello there, I'm Marcus Kravis. I'm the Division Councillor for Dunster Division, which for those that don't know, well, I think everybody knows what Dunster Division is. In between Minehead and Watchet, the nice part.
Councillor Andrew Hadley, I'm the divisional member for Minehead.
Councillor Lee Redman, one of the Bridgewater councillors for Bridgewater North and Central.
Councillor Rosemary Woods, I'm divisional member for Washford. No. Watchet through to Stegursey.
Andy Sully, Lydiard Division.
And we do also have Christine Lawrence, who's joined us online as well.
Thank you.
So the first order of business that I need to do is appoint a chair. Oh, sorry, Dave.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Dave Coles. I'm Head of Regulatory Services, and ports is one of the functions that fall within my service area.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So the first order of business that I need to do is appoint a chair. So can I have nominations for a chair, please?
Can I propose Councillor Andy Sully, please?
Seconder for Andy Sully. Okay. And the vote for Andy Sully. The vote. Thank you. Any more votes for chair at all? Any more nominations? Nope. Lovely. Then, oh, Christine, sorry. Have you got your hand up to vote, Christine, or you put your hand up to speak? Sorry.
I was just voting in favour.
That's fine. No problem. Thank you. Lovely. So that's unanimous that Andy Sully is chair of the Harbour Management Advisory Committee. So if you'd like to come and take a seat up in the hot seat, Councillor Sully.
Okay, we're going to item agenda 2, appointment of vice chair. I'm happy to nominate Councillor Rosemary Woods as vice chair of the committee. Do we have a seconder? Does everyone like to vote on that? It's unanimous. Okay. Yeah, we'll just ask, is there any more nominations? No? Okay, you're duly elected, but you, Rosemary, but you can stay there. Basically.
You can swap with me if you want.
That's all right. Do you want to stay there?
Or swap here so you can hear. If you can hear better here, then we're welcome to swap.
Yeah, we'll swap. That's all right. Okay, great. Thank you. That's great.
It's all right. It's the first one. We're learning.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 3, apologies for absence. Obviously, all councillors are here, so we're 100%, so we'll move on from that. Okay, on to agenda item 4, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone want to declare an interest other than the town parish councils, which are obviously published on our website? No, that's fine, okay. 5, we've got public questions. Do we know if anyone's actually asked any public questions?
No public questions, thank you, Chair.
Okay, great. Okay, we can move on quite quickly. Okay, we'll go then to agenda item 6, which is the terms of reference draft memorandum of understanding and an update on the co-opted member recruitment. And I believe that's hand over to Jessica. Thank you.
I will try to make it as clear as I can. With the unitary authority formation, the various ports that were under different district councils came under our portfolio. So the problem with harbours and ports is they have their own legal entities. So for it to be able to continue to function so that the Somerset Council could still remain the statutory harbour authority and allow all these ports and harbours to function, we've had to make up a memorandum of understanding so that it in essence is saying that where it used to be Sedgemoor or where it used to be West Somerset and Taunton, that in its stead is Somerset Council. It's the memorandum of understanding has been drawn up by Ashford's. Well, it's all fairly self-explanatory, but it's basically saying that, it's telling us how it operates and how it's going to work until we get a harbour revision order. With a harbour revision order, you'd then make it a legal standing that Somerset Council would then become legally, although this has legal standing. I don't know if Dave wants to add anything because he had a bit more to do with it with my predecessor. So.
Sorry, yeah, no, the memorandum of understanding has been, like Jessica said, has been produced by Ashford solicitors, and this was part of some work that we did prior to vesting day to make sure that it was encompassed in a bigger piece of work to do with harbour governance, etc., making sure, like Jess said, that the governance structures are in place for the new authority, covered the various ports and activities that we had. And part of that work was forming this committee so that we had the Harbour Management Advisory Committee in place. And obviously this committee feeds into the executive, I think, and makes recommendations, if I'm correct, to the executive. So this memorandum of understanding has been produced so that there is, I suppose, in simple terms, an agreement between the executive and the Harbour Management Committee as to how that interaction will work. It sets out, I suppose, the sort of terms of reference, the operating protocols of this committee, and like I say, it puts in place the mechanisms and how we interact with the executive as the duty holder, because the executive is something called the duty holder, so they hold the legal what would you call it, the legal responsibility for safety within the port, and obviously this committee is designed to look at sort of operational matters, things to do with business plans and so forth. But like I say, the memorandum of understanding is in essence an agreement between this committee and the executive as to how it will operate and who can be appointed onto the committee, etc. So there's various detail in that, and this has gone through, like I said, a legal process with Ashford solicitors and was included in an executive report that I did prior to vesting day, and was agreed at that point in principle. I suppose I don't want to step on the chair's toes, but it might be something that members may want to just review this to make sure they're happy at how it, with the wording, etc., or if there's anything that they don't understand and can be clarified before it's formally agreed.
Do have a question myself, but I'll just bring Jessica back in if she wants to clarify something. Thank you.
I was just going to say this, the whole business for the reason for the formation of a harbour management committee is because it's bringing it into line with the Port Marine and Facilities Safety Code, which I would advise any of the members interested, and particularly those on this, to actually have a look at, because it is about having a framework to make sure that the ports are operating effectively and do have the necessary funding and activities, but it's working on a much more commercial basis. Obviously, as a municipal port, we can only operate on a cost neutral basis or a very small profit that would then come back into it. But at the end of the day, you have these assets and they need to be able to function in an effective manner. And this is really part of the framework that the government has deemed is the way that all ports, municipal, trust and private ports should move ahead going forward so that you get a more effective management of the systems.
Thank you for that, Jessica. I've got a quick question, then I'll bring in Lee and then Andy. On the memorandum of understanding, which obviously the Ashfords have done, we've got in red the information which obviously the council has put. I haven't got page numbers on it to give guidance. They say that that the membership should be 12 members, 6 council elected and 6 co-opted members, and then it goes on to say that quorum should be 2, which would, if you've got 6 council members, a quarter would be 1.5, so they've rounded it to 2. But in the other document we've got, it says that it is 4. And so we need a bit of clarity on the document, on the paperwork. Are we talking about a committee of 12 or 10? Are we talking about 6 elected councillors or not? And are we saying the quorum is 2 or is it 4? Because last meeting, we told it was 5. And we did have 4 in the room, because obviously Lee was online, but we couldn't have the meeting legally. So we need to tidy up the paperwork.
Yeah,
That makes sense. I don't know if you've got anything you can
Yeah.
add to that.
no, that's fine. We, like I say, this is a draft produced by Ashfords, and I did clarify some points with them at the time, and discussed with Democratic Services some time ago. And these were just suggested things that they put in there. These can be amended for our local, say our local makeup of our local requirements. So, and I believe that Democratic Services has obviously put this committee together and had looked at this and had obviously come up with a member mix that they thought would work.
So for clarity then, is so these if what's in red on the memorandum of understanding is not that's in stone for us, it's the other document we've got to take, is it? We're saying that there should be 6 councillors.
Yeah, so the document that has been used to set up this committee, this is what you should be going by. These bits in red can be amended to, this is just a draft version of the document. So whatever Democratic Services have put in place, it can be substituted in here for the, in relation to this document. This document is like these are sort of standard type documents that are issued for various ports. So some ports may have slightly different requirements if they're much bigger, if they've got different makeup of members, etc. So this will be whatever Democratic Services have set the committee up will be inserted into this document.
Just to clarify, Chair, whilst you're going through this, so as Democratic Services, we are looking at lowering the quorum level. So it is currently, you are right with it in the first document, but we are looking at putting it down to try and manage it, but that hasn't been sorted out yet. So if that needs to be done, then we can look at that.
Right, okay, I've got Lee next.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that myself.
Oh.
I'll start from my beginning. First of all, I wanted to formally thank the council for ending up in this position. I think we've been on a bit of a journey to get to this. There were different options and different parameters there. So to see this document in front of us and to have a chair in place for this body, I think is a good start. I was going to find some questions in relation to the memorandum of understanding. What I think we were aiming at is the forward to the document, which is there on page 9 and 10 and 11, gives I think the basis of where we are. It's clear there, and I read it that it would be 6 members of council and 4 co-opted members, so that would work. I think when it comes to being quorum, the ability to be quorum will be easier when we have some co-opted members on board. Some of the reason why we had a problem getting off and running in the first instance was because of there were only 6 councillors, and you obviously needed the quorum to be there. So I think where we're heading is the fact that if we're taking the cover report as a direction of travel, I think that's a good place to start. And if that's where it is, then I would support that. The question I was going to ask is a little bit bigger question to get some meat around. It's about liability of this committee. My understanding is that the council or the executive will be the main holders of the decision, and we are as an advisory committee in a separate position. So that's first question for clarity, please.
I believe that's correct. We're the duty holders. Sorry, the executive, the duty holders, were advisory, but obviously Jessica couldn't.
I was just
a bit more
gonna-
detail.
I was really just going to concur on that. The duty holders for the port are normally the executive or a particular body that's been done. They are then singularly and collectively responsible and held accountable for what goes on the port. The Harbour Management Advisory Committee is purely a mechanism to ensure that we get a sort of more commercial framework involved, and also so that we have direct access. So if there is an exciting something that happens in one of the ports and we need to speak with the executive directly, we have that access. It's a way of making sure that we have an effective way of managing these ports without having to go through quite often what happens in municipal layers of management and various committees that can take too long. Our ports are dynamic, and that's what needs to be borne in mind. This is not trying to circumnavigate stuff. It is actually trying to make it more effective so that we can make sure that we actually make progress with these ports and harbours.
Thank you. To continue there, so I knew the answer, but I just wanted it formally so that we were clear where we're going in relation to that. The second bit I was going to ask is about the dynamic nature of decision making. I'm not sure whether within the memorandum of understanding there's I suppose a shortcut option for you. So my suggestion was going to be, maybe it would be, if it's not already there, that I would be happy to suggest that we consider to allow this to be as dynamic as possible, that we maybe as a group give the chair and the vice chair, in consultation with yourself perhaps, the ability to make some decisions, some live decisions that will then come to the next available meeting. I hope that as things go forward, there will be a lot of exciting decisions for us to take and that we can build on it. But I think if it's not necessarily an answer for now, because I know that there'd be a need to double check the legality of what I'm suggesting. But my suggestion would be that we're, as a group, we delegate, that's the word I was trying to find, any urgent decision making to the chair, vice chair, in consultation with the appropriate bodies.
Thank you. That sounds an interesting point to consider, because obviously we recommend to the executive. So, and obviously this will go to Bill through as governance, because it comes under Bill, even though it's underfed from a regulatory operations point of view. From a governance, the executive will report into Bill and obviously the executive.
Chair, thank you. I wasn't. Thank you for the response, but it was more a suggestion I was making. I'm conscious that we've got the memorandum of understanding will need to be polished for the next meeting. But I know that some other members that come in, but subject to that point that I've made, what I'm happy to do is, if we get to it, I would be happy to propose the cover report as a direction of travel for us, subject to any changes that are made going forward.
Thank you, Lee, for that suggestion. It is a good idea. I think we'll obviously take counsel on that. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to first of all mention the membership, but you've covered all those points, so there's no need for me to go further. The other one is about accounts. It says that it's the intention of for the council to keep separate accounts for the harbour undertakings. I'm not sure whether the council actually have a separate budget for harbours at the moment, but does that mean that each harbour is going to have its own budget, or will it be an overall budget for all the harbours?
Would you like to answer that one? Yeah,
I'm quite happy.
so currently we have a separate budget for Port Bridgewater and then a separate one for Watchet and Minehead. And at the moment, that is carrying on into next year. However, there may be, they're currently looking at a lot of the budgets, because obviously there's still legacy stuff coming over from the previous authorities. So that will be something that will be looked at early in the next financial year, as to whether there is any scope for sort of consolidating budgets to make it a bit more simple.
I'm just going to add on to that, is that if you look at the harbour legislation, you'll find that most of these ports have got ring fenced. So in fact, they should have budgets that are protected, if you want, because obviously ports for the nature of what they do, need to make sure that they're properly financed. Having said that, there are, you know, it would make it much easier in some respects because then you're not trying to, I think it would make it an easier option if the budgets are sort of kept as the port budget and they're then fed into the executive from, say, something like this, because the whole point of this committee in some respects is to start looking at business plans, what we need to do in the future, what the money is, what the finance is, and actually be proposing what we need from the council, not what the council would like to give to us. Because unfortunately, a bit like a lot of things, harbours, shipping, boats, or women, depending, or men or partners generally, are, you know, bottomless pits into which you pour money, which is often the way. But no, I mean, in some respects, it would be much easier if we have the ability to move across, but that'll make it much easier once we have something like the Harbour Revision Order in place, because then it'll be one statutory harbour authority. And then each port has very individual needs. So that also needs to be borne in mind. So one port may need a considerable more input than say another. Now, if you've got a consolidated bit, we can make I'd like to think we can make the appropriate judgments as to where the money needs to be spent. But obviously that's something that can also be monitored and questioned.
Thank you. Do we actually have a budget for this year for the?
Yeah, so the budget has been, there was a budget this year, and then there's the new budgets have been sort of, have come out in the last, or have been started to be circulated in the last couple of weeks. So there is budget for next year, obviously for ports. There's like I said, there's currently a separate one for Port Bridgewater, and then a separate one for.
So we could see those budgets at the next meeting then?
Yeah, they should be. I mean, next meeting will be the next financial year, I understand, possibly. So they'll be fully published by then. So yeah.
So we can go through that.
Yeah.
Okay, Rosemary.
If there's a budget for the separate harbours, is it considered, because of our problems, the problems in Watchet over actually getting boats in and out because of the silt, is that taken care of within the budget?
Yeah, there is a budget assigned for dredging of the port. So yeah, so there will be budget next year to undertake dredging.
Right, thank you. Marcus.
Although I suspect that budget is nowhere near what it needs to be and should be, but that's for another conversation. It was actually, I've lost it now, the term, how long the MOU lasts, and I see that, you know, the parties will review the MOU, and then also we can review it at 12 months. But of course, the only people who can terminate the MOU is the executive, although we could suggest to the executive they might want to terminate it, but they might not necessarily take that advice and not terminate it. So once we sign up to this as a committee, we're stuck with it, unless we all rebel. Is that right?
I imagine so, but I don't think we'll be rebelling, Marcus. I think we'll be rebelling.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, this MOU is sort of I suppose a standard type template that's used in most ports. So it is just sort of those agreements between, just so that the committees function between themselves. I don't know, like you say, the various mechanisms for review, etc. But it's based on principles laid down in the Ports Guide to Good Governance, so that it's designed, I think, like Jessica mentioned earlier, to make sure that there is clear decision making and there's a clear sort of path of decision making that's clear to all involved, to us guys working in the port and you guys as members, etc. And obviously, I suppose port users and members of the public have confidence that the decisions are going through a recognised process.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone else want to ask any questions before? Right, Lee.
It's just, if there are no further questions, Chair, I'm conscious that we need, you're looking for some level of agreement in relation to the memorandum of understanding. What I was going to suggest was that if, as I made reference to earlier, we use the cover report on pages 9, 10, 11 as a direction of travel, that sets out a committee of 10 with 6 members of council and 4 co-opted. It gives an indication of the timescales that the first phase of the co-option going forward, but also that we seek guidance in relation to the ability to delegate any dynamic decision making or recommendations to the chair and vice chair. But what we would also, before we can endorse the full document, it needs to have the red bits formalised so that it can come back. So if that's the case, then I'm happy to propose we use the report as a direction of travel. Secondly, that we seek the ability, if it's not already included, to allow dynamic decision making to be devolved to the chair and vice chair, and that a ratified or an amended final draft comes back to the next meeting.
I'm happy for that to be the case. Have you second that? I think obviously this has been recorded and that you're taking notes, so this will be covered for the next meeting. Thank you. So basically we need to, we'll take a vote on that now. Everyone's happy? Take a vote on that now. So we'll note that. Thank you. Agenda item 7, stakeholder for engagement update. So it's going to be the Jessica Tyson show today. Over to Jessica again.
Apologies. I usually get told to be quiet quite often, so it's a novelty to be being asked to speak. Right, so stakeholder forum engagement, that's also part of the Port Marine Safety Code. It is a means of making sure that all vested parties within each port, whether it's users and others who have got an interest, can bring forward their concerns or what they would like to happen, etc., and so that we get direct feed in from people who are actually utilising these assets. We do and have had one in the Port of Bridgewater, obviously for a considerable amount of time, in the form of the Burnham-on-Sea Water Users Forum, and that includes fishermen, leisure craft users. Obviously, we come as the commercial side of things. We have instigated one. We've also got the Watch It Harbour Advisory Committee, which is also another stakeholder group that was put into the Harbour Revision Order when the Watch It Harbour was actually made in 2000. That's a little more formal, but essentially it is the same thing, a stakeholder group that feeds back into the Harbour Authority so that we get on the ground information. And we've recently, back in September, we started one in Minehead, which is mainly to do with the commercial fishermen, the leisure users and other interested parties. We have one coming up we've recently just had a Watch It Harbour Advisory one last week, and we will be looking to have the stakeholder one in Minehead probably in the first or second week in April. We would look to have them at least twice a year for most of them. As with all stakeholder groups, we're hoping that people will bring concerns, but also bring constructive and helpful suggestions rather than making it an arena or a platform for complaining about what they see is not happening. At the end of the day, it is a forum to bring problems to as well, but hopefully we can make it a positive interaction rather than just another platform for people to come along and have a toot, which is useful, but not always all the time.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Got Rosemary.
I heard you mention the Watch It Harbour Advisory. Can we be let known? Will it be let known when they meet? Because it seems to be a secret organisation, as far as I'm concerned, that they don't tell me when they meet. And obviously the public might want to know that as well.
I don't know if is it a public meeting?
No. To be honest with you, I'm not sure, but as far as I know, people that are concerned, like any stakeholder group, there are particular groups that have to sit on it or do sit on it. I will find out. I can get clarification from the chair of the Watch It Harbour Advisory Committee, and then I can report back to this committee so that we can get a bit of clarity.
If I could just add to that, I believe that the minutes are published or are going to be published on our website. So there is, there are public minutes available.
When we had the Somerset Western Taunton Harbour Committee, we used to obviously have a regular update from the stakeholders, which was obviously was the Harbour Advisory from Watch It, which was very good, and we also used to get updates from Minehead, from I think it was the boat, I think it was the boat owners associations, and we used to get the deputy harbour master used to come along and give us an update. So it always used to be very informative. We knew what was actually going on. So it'd be good to keep their stakeholder forums coming to us to update us. So I found if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have much on the meeting. And that from that point of view, I know we've got to do the business plan going forward. Okay, so I'll bring Marcus in.
Sorry, Chair. My mind just got sidetracked because I suddenly remembered I got a phone call from someone about watch it. But I just thought about declaring interest in being a minor town councillor because we suddenly started talking about a Minehead Harbour advisory.
Yes, on your
I just
declaration.
make sure
Yeah,
that-
that's right. Yeah, thank you for
So
mentioning that.
also, you mentioned, Jessica, and apologies again if it sort of didn't quite stick in the middle. You mentioned about commercial fishermen, and I'm just wondering how many we got. How many are there? Because in West Somerset, because it's sort of one of those urban myths that there's only two, but I'm sure there's more.
No, I think there's, well, all of them. There's a couple of commercial fishermen, and then you also got the ones that are considered to be commercial in the sense that they take out leisure users to go fishing, but it's under that auspice. So, but yes, we have some, and we're looking at a variety of things in trying to improve some things down there so that we can possibly encourage more.
Thank you, Lee.
Just a bit of dynamic thinking from me. We have a wonderful page on our website for the Harbour Master, and it would be sensible maybe to add a couple of drop downs there to say meetings or something or points of interest. So you can get your forums there advertised, and that would also then give us an opportunity to, because you, as you rightly indicated, Jessica, that the minutes for those meetings will be recorded. So on our on the Somerset Council website under the Harbour Masters page would be an ideal place to put all that information. So as meetings are coming up, they could be used, and also it could be a place where members of the public can find the minutes for our meeting and any of the appropriate forums.
That sounds an excellent idea. I haven't seen that page. I will go and have a look at that afterwards. I think more information we can put on, the better. Jessica.
I would just say that I am in the process of speaking with the IT people to try and make it a little bit more of a dynamic. At the moment, it is a little bit of a hodgepodge and not necessarily very user-friendly for whether you're trying to find anything about any of the ports. It is there. It does need quite a serious revamp to make it so that you can find what you need without having to sort of dive too deep. So hopefully we can actually make it a better experience.
Having been a councillor for a while, I may be able to add a little bit of weight behind that. I would suggest that this committee supports the Harbour Master in her attempt to try and make the web page more interactive and more beneficial for its purpose.
I agree 100%. I think that we should put it on the future work programme so we can get updates on it. Thank you very much, Lee, for just that. We'll take that on board. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sorry, I was just going to drag us back to the forums, actually. Forgive me for digressing slightly. I think the forums sound really interesting. And of course, it's important that as a body ourselves, we understand the issues and concerns for each of the different areas that we're responsible for. So I look forward to having both at the next meeting, potentially some reports of the meetings, the forums to go, and also to follow Rosemary's suggestion is if they're publicised a little bit more, we can add our weight to getting those attended as well, and potentially. I would hope, because your contact details would be on this site, or the Harbour Master's contact details, that as councillors for different areas, we would be signposting any members of the public with concerns to speak to you before bringing it to the forum, because as you say, the forum should be a place where conversations can be had about how to move things forward rather than over issues that are there.
Andy.
Yeah, excuse me. I actually agree with everything Lee's just said. And one thing I would say is we need to sort out the website sooner rather than later, because everything that's on there at the moment, especially for SWT, is the old SWT Harbour Board. Their old minutes, their old meetings and everything else. So it doesn't even exist anymore. So it needs sorting out.
We'll definitely do that. I don't know if Jessica could give us a little bit of insight about stakeholder involvement from terms of the Bridgewater dock, because obviously that's going to be a really exciting program. Obviously, they've got funding to enhance it and upgrade it. Is there a stakeholder? I'm not too sure. Is it the town council? Is there a stakeholder group involved on the harbour?
I'll be honest with you, because there is some interest with Bridgewater Docks and whether, as a harbour authority, it's not actually part of the Port of Bridgewater as it stood, because it was built by merchant consumers and people businesses rather than actually being part of the harbour. We do have dialogue with the people that are engaged in doing it, because obviously it's trying to get joined up thinking and writing in relation to what's possible on the waterborne side of things. I haven't heard a huge amount. I know that they're doing bits, but they usually come to us as an interested stakeholder to actually have the conversation about what is possible and what is not, and hopefully moving forward we'll continue to be consulted so that we can ensure that the correct representation for the harbour is made.
Okay, so you're saying they sit outside of us in that sense, even because I read on some of the documents I read last night that the Bridgewater docks, and they've got all the rules and regulations penning to it. So they showed like Minehead, Watch It, Bridgewater, and it showed it all. So I just assumed it comes under us, but obviously, do you want to give some clarity? Thank you.
I'm going to let Dave have a little word, because there was some confusion about
Yeah.
who actually owned Bridgewater Docks when we became the unitary, and that then lends itself to some confusion moving forward. So
I think
I
mean, Bridgewater Docks has historically not been part of Port Bridgewater, as Jessica said. It's a separate entity in its own right, and there is I mean, I understand there's a development team looking at it to redevelop it or get some funding available, I think, to do some work on it. That's separate from anything we're doing in the port, and like Jess said, we've been asked for some sort of technical advice, I suppose, in the past on harbour matters, etc. But it's a completely separate project from the port. We've never had any jurisdiction in there in terms of having to do any, previously I think it had been leased to Canals and Rivers Trust, I believe. So it's not something which falls within our operational remit. So that's something that I think, if there's any questions about the Bridgewater Docks or any development, or what's happening there in terms of redevelopment funding, etc., that's probably best to be sort of taken up with the project team that's working on that, and they will know the ins and out of what's happening.
Okay, that's a shame, because I thought it's going to come under us. I'll be really interested in what's going on, but Lee's shaking his head.
I'm hoping that there will be a bit of joined up thinking, because obviously the docks do butt straight onto the River Parrett, and if we're trying to make better economic developments and thinking it needs to be joined up, and that means not having important decisions taken without actually looking at the slightly wider picture of where it sits, always lose the opportunity.
Forgive me, Chair, I'm just looking to, I'm just conscious that we're recording the meeting, and I was just looking to see whether the members of the public are on board. My understanding is, as a member of the town council, the project is developing, and it may be, if you were to ask for an update, would be interesting for the next meeting. There are issues that's been indicated over ownership at the moment that are needing to be clarified slightly.
Maybe we can do that for the next meeting, maybe get an update. Be interesting.
Yeah, I'll go back to the people that we've had contact with and request that we have some sort of update so that we can put it into context.
Yes, that's excellent. So do I have any more questions? If not, I'm happy for us as a committee to note the update. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the port feasibility study. Over to Jessica.
Right, the port feasibility study. This is something that was undertaken for the Port of Bridgewater. So this is a very port specific or harbour specific. The port feasibility was undertaken really by Sedgemoor District Council. What we were trying to do was, because currently in the Port of Bridgewater, we are really a navigational authority rather than having any jurisdiction. Well, we have no jurisdiction because we own no wharfs, which is slightly unhelpful if you're trying to promote a port and get more business in. So the port feasibility study was undertaken so that we had some evidence from an independent third party to determine what was actually realistic in what we could or couldn't bring into the port, given the current economic climate. It's not all negative, it's not all positive, but there is certainly room for development of Dumble. But what was very clear from the port feasibility study was that for us to effectively move forward, then the council seriously needs to look at either taking up a lease or buying up some wharfage so that you actually can promote the port effectively. There are constraints on it simply by nature of where the river is and the fact that Bristol Channel tends to drain out twice a day. It is not one, it will come into play because at the moment we have two big projects that will be happening within the Port of Bridgewater, which is firstly the gravity project and the giga, whatever it is, because in fact the wharfs that are up at Dumble are only about a 5-10 minute road trip away from the site, and there are no bridges. So anything that needs to come in that's big and effective doesn't actually have too much infrastructure to try and get past, which will obviously be useful, but obviously we have some constraints in tonnage that we can bring up. There's also the tidal barrage, which the EA and Sedgemoor District Council at the time which will be now Somerset Council, are sort of partnering in doing that. And again, if we had a bit more frontage, we could assist in that. And that's obviously going to help in bringing in cash flow and just making sure that the port stays alive in a meaningful way. I'm very happy, and I'm sure Dave will let me know if I shouldn't, or even Josh. The port feasibility study, I'm quite happy to share with members of the committee so that you can get a better idea of what's going on in relation to, and this is purely for the Port of Bridgewater. In relation to Minehead and Watchet, we haven't obviously done that because we've only just come into our portfolio, for mine, I should say. But there is plenty to be hopeful for moving forward for both of those ports, and they have slightly different, as they're not working on such a commercial basis, there is just different drivers as to the way forward on that one. So at the moment we haven't got one for those.
Right, thank you for that, Jessica, for that update. I think the best thing, because obviously we'll all be keen to see the feasibility study, but I think the main thing to do with it would be to put it, councillors, into our confidential modern.gov, which we can view. So obviously, so we don't trust members of the committee. We don't want, because it's commercially sensitive, we do not want anything to be divulged outside to anyone who could get a commercial advantage from it. So I suggest, hopefully Democratic Services can put it into the confidential part of modern.gov for us, and send us an email to say that it's there, and then we can then view it. Is that okay? Yeah, I'm having a shake of the head there. That's great. So we can actually view that document. Was it a local company that did the feasibility study for you guys?
It was someone in Somerset. It was Moss, Nyla and Young.
Right, okay.
But it was quite an extensive one. And they brought somebody in who had a lot of logistics and information and experience in it. So I think it's quite a good report in relation to what's actually realistic and how we can actually help support stuff.
I think it could be key to keeping less road trips going to the biggest, probably they say it's going to be one of the largest factories in Europe and one of the biggest construction sites. So we can bring stuff in via, like if I say a port type of facility, makes common sense in that sense. Obviously, there's a financial element. We'd have to look at that to advise the executive, but the executive, I know from the council's dealings, they're looking at £150 million loan from the government for infrastructure, which is for road, rail, and could be for ports as well. So that money may be there already, but obviously we've got to look at the feasibility, how it will add value to the council. Is it something the council wants to do, or would the council have a third party do it? We don't know yet. So we're happy to look at the report and happy for us maybe to discuss it in more detail at the next meeting. Dave, and then Andy.
Yeah, so I was just going to add to what Jessica said, and really it's come up with things for us to consider, things that I think, like you said, Chairman, things that would need to be sort of fleshed out a bit more to determine whether we could do them and what the options are. But it's given us, I think, a good starting point to look at those options and given us some sort of, I suppose, to say certainty, but some some evidence to work with on in terms of what we think we can do and what might be feasible given the right economic climate and the right circumstances being in place.
Andy?
Naughty or left mine on. Yeah, I mean, I don't want any specifics, but I'm just pretty much what you just said. I think the feasibility, does it actually identify any wharfish that might be available, or is it?
I had already identified what wharfage was and is possible. I had been talking with Dave and other people within Sedgemoor District Council. The lease currently is held by a third party who, and I believe it finishes this year. I do know I've obviously got the contact details of the owner that's there, and I think a lot of it may be a question of perhaps moving reasonably swiftly if we feel that that's a sensible thing to do, because otherwise I fear that the opportunity may be lost.
Yes. So it sounds like a good timing in that sense. Great. Anyone else got any questions? No? Okay. So I'm going to ask us all to note this report. Okay, and then we can move on to agenda item 9, which is the business strategy update. And we've got Jessica, yay.
It's like reprisal role. Right, so the business strategy update. So back when the harbour services for the Port of Bridgewater were contracted externally, the gentleman concerned did start building up some sort of business plan. Somewhere it's got lost. I started trying to get one up again when we first came back into the Somerset Council, but obviously there's been quite a lot of other things going on. So there is the bare bones of it, but it is something that needs to be thought of in a meaningful way, and we need to probably look at either a 3 or a 5-year plan. Some ways looking in the longer term will make it easier because then you can plan, but in other ways I feel because we're quite a new committee, and also because I feel that actually the ports need a little bit of attention, it may be worth looking at a 3-year plan with an extension of 2 years so that it's realistic. I think there's very little point of thinking that there are some things that we can fix very quickly, but obviously if there are financial demands that are required for it to be fixed, you don't want to fall foul of that. So you need to be realistic in how we look forward and make sure that we have a sensible business strategy, which is another reason why it's important that we get the correct or suitable skill set from people who are already on the committee and also people that we're co-opting on. It's about having people that got maybe entrepreneurial, people who've got maybe business experience, people who are thinking outside the box. It's about trying to make sure that we can utilise the skills that other people have to the best effect to get the best result for the ports, so that the council doesn't have something that they have to look after, but so that it will self-sustain. That's the reason for doing some of this. Is it will also allow then the council moving forward, given the current budgetary excitements, that we can then effectively put forward what we think we would need or how we want to, where we would like to be spending money to improve the ports.
Thank you. I think maybe we need to probably change the name of it, business strategy to business plan or business plans, because a business strategy is different to a business plan in the sense that a strategy is how you're sometimes going to do something, how you then do it tactically, then operationally. So it's the strategy. So I think we're happy with it, but we think we might call it business plan, and then we'll develop a short-term, medium and long-term plan. I think we'll call it business plan, because that will tell us what it is, because the business strategy would be how we will deliver the plan.
I was going to say, I would have said the strategy was
We need
incorporated into the business plan, that you need to have a way of travel, and then you need to determine how you're going to actually execute it.
Yeah, but we need a business plan to take us on that journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. I'll just bring Andrew in, then Dave.
Absolutely agree. We need a short, medium and long-term business plan, and it needs to be stratified. So yes, definitely. But also within that plan, we also need the Minehead and the Watchet Harbours included in that plan, so that it includes. I mean, the opportunities up at Dunbar are immense.
Yeah,
definitely. But we can't forget the smaller harbours.
Yeah, because
I would just come back on that and say, in all of this, what needs to be stressed is the Harbour Management Advisory Committee is about all the ports in Somerset that come under the portfolio. They have specifics, yes. Bridgewater is more commercial and therefore it can be a lot easier. But the others have got plenty of leisure and other aspects of it that need to be promoted and need to be upgraded to make them more attractive. And that in turn will then obviously help businesses and economic development within those areas. So on my front, from the Harbour Master point of view, all three ports are equally important, but they just have different requirements. That's all.
Thank you. Difficult, or not difficult, we're going to look at how we take this forward as a business plan in terms of, you need some resource because you can't be you, it's not about you writing the business plan. It's about us as an organisation doing it and bringing in the right skill sets and the people. So obviously there's lots of knowledge between different people. So like Dave's got knowledge, you've got knowledge, we've all got probably ideas, and probably Lee's got ideas. So we need to obviously have a scaling. We need to sort of do like a draft skeleton of a business plan, what we want to achieve, what we think we need to look at. Yes. Because I've done many business plans in my past, but Andrew has as well for businesses. That's more about how you're going to make a profit and you're going to convince the bank to lend you money and stuff. So our business plan. So we need to probably get heading, even to start off with the next meeting, we just probably need headings of things which we want to look at. Yes. And then we then got to work out how we're going to do it, how we're going to deliver that business plan, because it's not just one person's plan. It's going to encompass all of us to get it and then get it to work, and then to write the business plans. So we all need to be engaged in it, and we all need to get buy into it. Because otherwise, if we're not all agreed to it, it won't be successful. It won't be deliverable. That makes sense. Marcus would like to come in.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember all ports are equal in Somerset, and forget my usual West Somerset bias. Yeah, I think I was just thinking about timescales because we talk about 3-year timescale. I think how long have we got left of this council? 3? I thought it was only 2. Yes, it's 3. But by the time you did mention, Jessica, that there's already sort of one kicking around somewhere. And do we need a 2-year one? Because by the time we do it, it will actually probably be a year, and that takes us to the end of the council.
I mean, when I say there's ones kicking around, there is sort of the bare bones because we started looking at it. How effective that is, and I'll be guided by other people. But, you know, in some respects, the more that you can get some of the frameworks in and get the mechanisms moving, it will then sort of take on its own life, and hopefully it wouldn't be so onerous. You could go for a 2-year one if you want to start with that one. But then, you know, you've got to be realistic on what's actually achievable given the current financial stuff. And sometimes it's the smaller things. It's about making sure that, you know, we actually bring the ports up from a regulatory and safety point of view to be improved, and make sure that we can make the small changes that will make a lot of difference to the people on the ground as much as the bigger, longer picture that's things. So we're talking about short term in some respects, and perhaps that's where the focus needs to be initially, but with a view to the fact that you do need to have a medium and long term, because you can then look at people. Yes, we're a municipal port, but there is usually funding around. Is there a way of us being able to get people that would like to invest in things in a particular way? I mean, I don't know what the legalities are. I'm not going to purport to understand that. But what I'm saying to you is it's about having a direction of travel as much as it is about actually actively doing something, because then we've got something to actually go back to people that are concerned and show them where the direction of travel is going. We are making purchase simply by the fact that we have had stakeholder groups, and we are, as a harbour authority, speaking with local people and making sure that they realise that there is a management of the harbour going on. It is not simply being lost in just council. Some of it is educating people into the differences between the council as the council and the council as a statutory harbour authority. Different hat, certain regulations come in, and yes, there is crossover. However, sometimes there are certain things that have to be done from the council's point of view and also the council as a statutory harbour authority. So there's some short fix. I mean, the big fix would be lots of money. But the reality is that with all these things, any business has to then look at it and view, you know, where you can find the money from, or how you can maximise what you can get from the amount of money you already have to be able to try and do some of these things. So there isn't a quick fix.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Jessica, you did allude earlier that there was a business plan or maybe a rough one knocking around. Is that something that we could have access to as a starting point?
I can
having
certainly
a blank
put it
piece- yeah.
on, I can certainly, well, I've got one that I started doing as well. So between Dave and I will, perhaps we can put it in the same place as the other one so that it's
Yeah, because
with Josh.
obviously it will
sorting it
need updating and revising and that sort of, but it gives you ideas and thoughts, even though you might not be 100% happy with it, because like you say, because it's going back a few years, but at least it gives us an impetus and ideas of what we should be maybe looking at.
I think the port feasibility study, although it only covers Bridgewater, will feed into this process as well. That was one of the reasons it was done, was to try and help with, while we were at Sedgemoor, or whilst it was still Sedgemoor, to look at that sort of business strategy thing and just actually look at what is feasible and is, is there feasible things we can do. So that can all feed into this process. And just to reiterate, like Jessica said, now we are one council. It will, all the harbours are together. It is about looking to develop, proposals or initiatives for all the harbours, because that's what we want to do. And they've got, there's some good stuff going on at Minehead and Watch It, and you've got a lot of leisure craft there and fishing, and that's something which is really good. And I think it's particularly good for things like, not just a tourist, but it's a good tourist thing as well. So they're just looking at all the aspects of it. What can we, what can we do from say a commercial sort of mindset to make the ports generate a bit of income and provide a really good facility for all the port users.
Thank you for that, Dave. That's great. Okay, does anyone else have any questions or anything? Okay, so we're going to add that, obviously, the business skeleton business plan onto the more.gov as well. Then you happy with that, Jessica?
Yeah, more than happy to
Yeah.
provide that onto the website.
That's great. Okay, so we're all happy to note the update. Great. Okay, this isn't Jessica, the next one. So you're off the hook now. We're going to go to invite Josh to talk about the work programme and people have ideas what needs to go on. I think we've probably discussed that a bit beforehand. We've probably got enough work to do for the next few years, but over to you, Josh. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen because obviously as we've been going, we have discussed the work programme and what you want to put on there for a little bit. So let me just share my screen. Little bit small, but hopefully that's fine. So just for a bit of background information, so the work programme, people that don't know, I don't know if Jessica knows, but it will be sort of, all the committees have them, it's sort of a forward planning for what we want in the next meeting and what we want in upcoming meetings. So the first, sorry, Mark, the first thing to note is the proposed date. So it is the 29th of July. The calendar for the next meetings hasn't been formalised yet. So that's proposed date 29th of July, but when I know a final date, I will send around an invite and you will be emailed. So we've got the amended final draft of the memorandum of understanding to come back. Updates for the Harbour Master website page. So what I'll do, Jessica, is after this meeting, I will fill out what's called a web form. So that goes to the web team and we say we want to update a particular page. They'll then contact you.
We've already been in touch and somebody was supposed to be getting in touch with me anyway, so I'll just make sure we're talking to the right person.
I will make sure we
avoid
chase that
confusion.
side of it then, so that's fine. So we've got reports to come back or feedback to come back from Harbour meetings / forums and an update / report on the Bridgewater dock development. Is that enough for people to get their teeth into for the next meeting? Do you want to bump anything on to another meeting? Do you want anything else added?
We haven't discussed about the co-opting the members on. I thought, in the sense that we've obviously got to interview people because we're obviously going to look at getting 4 members. So hopefully, because reading through it says that the chair's got to and the vice chair need to be part of the interview process.
So the update we have on that at the moment is that there is going to be, I think we've got 1 member that we're hopefully looking at setting up a discussion with. Is it next week? Looking behind Mike, does he say that?
Thank you, Chair. Is it all right if I give a quick update? So we've currently had 6 applicants. Jess and I are meeting with them all next week for initial discussion, just to ensure they fully understand the role of this committee and the time commitment, etc. on their part. If they're happy at that point, we can then definitely progress something to involve yourself and your vice chair before we move forward with any appointments.
Right, yeah, because it does say in the memorandum, or I think it was in the memorandum and something somewhere I read that it said that the vice chair and chair have to be party to obviously interviewing and selecting the people to come onto the committee. So that I'm happy with that, and obviously
We're just at information giving stage with them at the moment, but we'll absolutely make sure you're involved for any future full-on recruitment.
okay, that's excellent. Thank you for that.
So we might well have new members that come to this next meeting. Do you want me to put an update on there for the interviews and stuff that you hold, so you can give an update on
We
that?
need to update. Yes, we need to put. We'll have to, on the work program. We need to have it as an update because obviously until we have the 4 members, then we need to update us every time to say what is happening and what the progress is.
Chair, if I may, I'd hope that by the July meeting, those 4 members would have been appointed, so they would hopefully be here sitting on this committee.
I was hoping as well, but I know how the council work. I sit on the vice chair of audit committee, and we've been trying to get non-councillors onto the committee, and it's taken. We've got a lady now. It's taken nearly 18 months, nearly 2 years to get someone. So it does. The process sometimes can be a bit drawn out. When you consider it's July the next meeting, it seems that it's quite a long way away. And this committee is going to have an awful lot of work on its hands in terms of doing how to do the business plan and looking at things going forward. Is it possible to do? Is that we're happy with that to be in July? Are we, or what's your thoughts, Jessica?
I mean, it's really, I mean, everybody's got quite a lot going on. I'm happy to bring it forward or to have it on that day. Some of it's going to end up being where people are on holidays and things because it's July. So it's really just a question of perhaps seeing what's possible.
So yeah, what I will say, Chair, is we've obviously got, at the moment with the core the way it is for our committee, all of you need to be available in the room, which is why it's quite difficult to pinpoint a date. When we get new members in and we get the co-elected members in, then it might be easier to put one in, but I can certainly have a look and see if we can move it earlier if you would like. And we can
June would be probably good. I don't know what Andrew's thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm on holiday in June, so make sure you don't
Right,
pick
yeah.
that day.
We always need to check with Andrew because I think Andy's the only one who's got a day job.
Well, I work full time as
yeah,
well, so.
That's what I mean.
No,
That's
Jess has as well.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were a retiree, but obviously not.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, again, I'm similar in June. I'm, not necessarily on holiday, but not necessarily, not all dates are free. So whether we can send something round. So
we need to circulate dates before, instead of you telling us a date, we need to circulate within the committee because obviously lots of commitments in terms of holiday. Obviously work commitments for Marcus and work commitments for Andy. If we could do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, make no promises, but what I'll do is I'll look for the calendars and send some June dates out and we can go from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh.
I'm just
Andy,
going to add
sorry.
that there might be a possibility that if you pick a date where we have to do pilotage, I might not be able to be here, but that's not the end of it. But
We'll have Dave. Yeah, right, okay. Andy, so.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Obviously on there, you haven't got the business plan. Which we need to start working on the business plan because that's probably the most important thing that we will be working on. Secondly, about dates, if we can get a calendar of 12 months dates, because if we can do that, then I can book time off work and I know when I'm off. It makes life a lot easier then.
Yeah, so all the committee 12-month calendar is literally a few weeks out of being sent out. So then you'll get all the invites, all of it. That includes this committee, Harbour Management as well.
Just thinking that when we have the update at the next meeting for the business, what you put, business plan stroke strategy and probably be the feasibility study, we'll probably have to take that in confidential because obviously I'm assuming there'll be commercial issues. So that will have to be, I assume, done. Josh, I think you can concur that is correct. Yeah, we'll do that in confidential then. Is there anything else people, Marcus?
Was, I mean, sorry, I don't know whether this is the agenda item to bring it up in, but it was being talked about was the co-option. And excuse the pun, but how wide have we cast our net there? So we get, different people applying than maybe, who maybe you'd expect to apply.
Who wants to answer that question?
I'm going to kick off and say that the Democratic Service has done their very best. They put it out on voluntary. I've been verbally trying to get people, but some of it has been quite difficult because just trying to get people to understand what the purpose of the committee is, rather than people thinking that it's another forum for bringing forward their particular problems, shall we say. So if you know of anybody, please get them to apply if they've got the appropriate skill set, or if they've just bring something forward, because we need as wide a scope as possible, because that will make it much more balanced. And it also provides a lot of differing ways of attacking a similar, some problem. Somebody will have it. So as far as I'm concerned, everybody's welcome.
Andy?
Yeah, it's just a point of clarification as well. I know that they didn't want people who were on the forums on the committee. I take it the volunteers can't be on the forums and on the committee either.
It's not actually a question not wanting them. It's a question that we took legal advice about it, and it was actually going to. No, but it's just to clarify, is that the reason if we have people that are on stakeholder groups, then there is a direct conflict of interest, because it's not particular. Stakeholder groups are specifically for each port of the particular stakeholder group they're for. And that then feeds obviously into the Harbour Authority. Now, if you're then also sitting on a harbour management advisory, you've then got a potential conflict in relation to, because this is a slightly bigger, broader, and obviously a more legal form of governance. So it was discussed, it was told. So if there are people that sit on stakeholder groups for representing a particular body, then it has been made very clear to them that should they wish to be on this Harbour Management Committee, then they would have to relinquish their post on said stakeholder group, because then it allows them to not have that conflict of interest. That doesn't stop them attending stakeholder groups. They just can't be in the more formalised representative role for obvious reasons.
I was just going to add to that is covered in the memorandum of understanding. So there is some lines in there that make it clear that you can't hold both posts for that particular reason.
That does make sense. We did say that about asking as a stakeholder the Bridgewater docks, who will formally request, because obviously they're not technically our stakeholders at the moment. Sorry? Someone said, yes, who's gonna, is that yourself, Josh, or will it be Jess? Who will have the task of actually talking to them about getting even if it's just an update or presentation, what actually is going to actually happen at the docks? So obviously they've got.
Well, I suppose the start would be for me to approach the people we've had contact with in a stakeholder group, and then determine if that's the correct person. They'll be able to tell me if it's the correct person. I will obviously liaise with Josh, because he understands the Democratic Service requirements.
Yes.
And then hopefully we would establish who is the person that can feed in on an appropriate level, so we get the right information.
That's great, thank you. Just wanted the clarity. You want to come to the next meeting, not know what's happening. Right. I thought someone else was inviting them. Okay, that's great. Does anyone got any questions on the work programme? Anyone want to add anything else to it? No, it looks like we're coming to the end then. Anything you want to add, Josh? You're happy?
Just one more thing, Jessica and Chair, for information. We have what we call pre-meets in most of our committees, where we tend to meet 3 weeks agenda setting.
Yeah.
We haven't set that up yet, obviously, because we've had the first one. Do you want me to set one up between Jessica and the Chair and myself?
We could do it on Teams, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
So
not
it'll be
in person, we can do it on Teams.
Are you happy with that, Rosemary? We'll do agenda setting. We'll just run through the agenda before the meeting. Maybe is it a week or 10 days?
Yeah, 2 weeks normally.
Or 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
We'll
yeah.
just go through it. We'll do it on
Yep.
Teams. Yeah,
I'll set one up once I've finalised the meeting, obviously.
that'll be excellent. Great. Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to for us to note the work programme as up on the screen, and we know the date. Well, the proposed date's the 29th, but we may be able to get it earlier. Josh is looking out for June, but obviously if any dates that Josh can come up with, we could put them out to all the members to make sure people could be here. Because I think the court is now 4 in the new document, not 5. so we wouldn't fall to the problem we had last time. So we can get that sorted out. So just like to thank everyone for attending today and have a safe journey home and look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.